Hi. Well, let's start with the outrage today, and then we'll get on to what happened in the market. The next two charts I'm going to show you are both courtesy of Zero Hedge. This first one is not actually a chart, it's just a view as to justification as to my belief that consumers are reeling and continuing to get pounded with higher and higher costs for all things, from eggs to meat to insurance to, in this case, medical insurance costs. And if you can see what I'm displaying to my left, you can see that Blue Cross Blue Shield is about to raise their rates by about 60%. In this case, from $867 for a 2-month period to $1,300 for a 2-month period. So, in other words, that went from 6/8 of $4,800 a year to what is that? Almost $8,000 a year. Actually, that's not quite $8,000 a year. That's 7.5-ish. But in any case, for an economy that's based on consumption, I believe still we estimate 70% of US GDP is consumption. It just exposes the weakness in our system. An economy really does well on the world stage if they produce things that other people in other countries want to buy. And that obviously is how one measures a country's success, by its balance of payments. If the country's producing things that it can sell, and it can sell more than it needs to buy from outside, the country's got a healthy economy. And as long as there's demand for its product, it can sustain itself. If an economy is based on consumption, then that gives rise to a scenario where, for example, I start cutting your lawn and you start doing my laundry, and GDP goes up. Well, that really doesn't seem to make sense to me. There hasn't really been any improvement in other positions. Yet GDP, as I'm sure you all know by now, is massaged. I'll give you a good example. There's nominal GDP and real GDP, and the difference is, let's say prices are rising at 5% a year, and the value of all goods and services produced in the economy over the year rise by 5%. Well, obviously, even though it shows a nominal growth of 5%, real growth is zero, because it's all just price increase and there's no actual improvement in sales. Now, this gives rise to an opportunity for people who jigger with the figures to make things appear very misleading. For example, let's say that prices are rising by 5%. And then let's also assume that when you measure the output of the economy over the year, it was up by 6%. Well, you could then say that the real growth was 1%. What if, due to artificial fudging, hedonistic measures, and outright shenanigans, what if the price rise was measured at only 2%? Suddenly, the 6% growth, 1% real, 6% nominal, 1% real, becomes 6% nominal, 4% real in the case of 2% inflation. And I'll point you to the most recent GDP numbers, where they actually assumed that inflation was negative. In other words, the real GDP was higher than nominal GDP. If anybody's wondering why I have doubt about official figures, all you have to do is look around. Look at your own bills. Look at your own statements. Here's an example of healthcare premiums rising by 60%. I know prices are going up. It is not measured. It's not counted properly. And that's why all official pronouncements as to how well we're doing, what prices are doing, should be taken with an entire bucket of salt. And the fact that you can't count on the data coming out of this administration, and I don't mean to point the finger at this administration, I don't think it was any different in previous administrations. This has been the case since the 70s. The fact that they continue to make statements that are flat out falsehoods and nobody calls them on it is outrageous. So on to the market action today. Dow, I think, was up, well, I don't have it in front of me, but it was about 50 points. The biotech index keeps getting hammered. I'm short that, and I'll add a story at some later point about how ironic it is that one person, I forget the fellow's name, but apparently he was worked for Jim Cramer at one point when Cramer was at Berkowitz. The guy went out, started a hedge fund, paid, I think, $50 million for a drug, for the rights to a drug, and subsequently increased the price dramatically. And by dramatically, I don't mean a double, I mean something like 10 or 100 times. This is one of the reasons why healthcare costs are completely out of control. If you've watched this channel for any period of time, you'll know how against the banking cabal I am, but I would add the medical cabal is just as dangerous, if not more so, and has certainly cost this economy trillions of dollars and continues to do so. Why is it that drugs cost more here than elsewhere? It's because if I go to Mexico and I buy snake snake antivenom for $200 a shot, that antivenom sells in the States for $80,000 a shot. So you'd think that'd be an easy business for me to go to Mexico, buy the snake antivenom there, and bring it back to the States and sell it for $50,000 and bring the prices down. Why does that not work? We are a capitalist society after all. Why is that not bringing prices back into line with international prices? It's because the medical cabal is exempt from antitrust. I'm not allowed to sell the snake antivenom. I'm not allowed to sell really anything in the medical field without going through the medical, the AMA and whatever other organizations they use to support their financial standing. In any case, so we did not see much of a move down in the markets today. Gold and silver got hammered early and recovered slightly. I'm still projecting lower prices. I'm still worried that we're going to see a bounce in the interim, and we may have. The market rallied something like 120 points in the last 20 minutes of the day to close up 50 odd. It certainly could go further, but the higher it gets, the more steep the decline will be, because I don't think anything is fixed. You may have heard that phrase before on this channel. There is no attention being paid to these problems by any of the adults in the room, and as far as I'm concerned, that's just evidence that everybody is co-opted. You can't persuade someone to stop believing something if his livelihood depends on believing it. And there's a huge number of people who are in the establishment, whether they are media personalities or business personalities, who have everything to gain by not speaking out and everything to lose by doing so. I am not in any establishment. I'm an individual. I trade for myself. It's what I do for a living, and so I cannot be co-opted. Hopefully I won't be threatened. Good luck out there.